Found out my son's little league coach was taking bribes to fix games. The parents' meeting that followed was more intense than the World Series. I discovered something that shattered my faith in youth sports when I accidentally overheard a conversation behind the concession stand that changed everything. My 10-year-old had been playing baseball for 3 seasons, and I thought I understood how the game worked until that Tuesday evening in April when I went to grab nachos during the fifth inning. Two men were standing near the back of the building, speaking in hushed tones about money changing hands and predetermined outcomes for upcoming games. The coach had been taking cash payments from certain parents to ensure their kids got more playing time and better positions on the field. My stomach dropped as I realized the implications of what I was hearing, and I felt sick thinking about how this corruption was affecting innocent children who just wanted to play ball. The conversation revealed that several games throughout the season had been manipulated, with specific players benched or moved to different positions based on under-the-table payments rather than skill or effort. I stood there frozen, trying to process the magnitude of what was happening right under our noses in what should have been a safe environment for kids to learn teamwork and sportsmanship. My mind raced through all the games I had watched, wondering which moments had been scripted and which children had been denied opportunities because their parents couldn't or wouldn't pay bribes. The realization that adults were corrupting something as pure as children's baseball made me feel physically ill. That night, I couldn't sleep as I wrestled with the decision of whether to confront the coach directly or gather more evidence before taking action. I kept thinking about my son's face when he got benched in the championship game last year, and now I wondered if money rather than performance had determined that outcome. The thought of other kids experiencing disappointment because of adult greed made my blood boil, and I knew I had to do something about this situation. I spent the next few days discreetly observing interactions between parents and the coaching staff, looking for signs of the corruption I had stumbled upon. Several wealthy families seemed to have unusual access to the coach, often engaging in private conversations before and after practices that other parents weren't invited to join. Their children consistently received prime batting positions and played in crucial defensive roles, regardless of their actual skill level compared to other kids on the team. The more I watched, the more obvious the pattern became, and I felt disgusted by how naive I had been to miss these red flags for so long. I started documenting what I observed, taking notes on my phone about suspicious interactions and keeping track of which children played in which positions relative to their abilities. My investigation revealed a systematic scheme that had been operating for at least 2 seasons, affecting dozens of families and their children. I decided to reach out to a few other parents who I suspected might have noticed something unusual about the team dynamics and coaching decisions. One mother confirmed that she had been approached about making a donation to ensure her daughter got more opportunities, but she had refused and noticed her child's playing time decreased significantly afterward. Another father mentioned that he had wondered why certain kids always seemed to get the best positions despite making obvious mistakes during games. The conversation with these parents opened up a network of suspicion and concern that had been quietly building among families who couldn't afford to participate in the bribery scheme. We realized that we weren't imagining things, and that our children were being systematically disadvantaged because we believed in fair play and merit-based selection. The anger and frustration that had been simmering individually suddenly had a collective voice, and we knew we needed to take coordinated action. I volunteered to confront the coach and demand an explanation for what appeared to be preferential treatment based on financial considerations rather than athletic ability. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday evening at the community center, and I spent days preparing what I would say and how I would handle potential denials or deflections. I gathered all the evidence I had collected and reached out to the league administration to inform them about the allegations and upcoming confrontation. The night of the meeting arrived with an unseasonably cold April wind that seemed to mirror the tension building in our community. I arrived at the community center 30 minutes early, expecting to find a small gathering of concerned parents, but instead discovered that word had spread throughout the entire league. Nearly every family from our team was there, along with parents from other teams who had apparently been dealing with similar issues with different coaches. The room was packed with angry mothers and fathers who had been harboring suspicions about corruption in the youth league for months or even years. I realized that what I had uncovered was just the tip of an iceberg that extended far beyond our single team and coach. The atmosphere was electric, with barely contained rage and disappointment, as parents shared stories of their children being passed over for opportunities despite their hard work and dedication. The coach walked in 20 minutes late, clearly unprepared for the crowd that had assembled to confront him about his conduct. His face went pale when he saw the number of people present, and I could tell he was calculating whether he could somehow talk his way out of the situation. The room fell silent as he made his way to the front, and I stood up to begin the confrontation that would determine the future of our children's baseball experience. I started by calmly outlining what I had witnessed and documented, presenting the evidence in a clear and organized manner that left little room for denial. The coach initially tried to dismiss the allegations as misunderstandings and coincidences, but his explanations became increasingly desperate as more parents began sharing their own experiences. One by one, families stood up to describe how their children had been affected by what now appeared to be systematic corruption. The first major revelation came when a mother from the opposing team revealed that the fix hadn't been limited to playing time and positions, but had actually extended to game outcomes. She had discovered text messages on her husband's phone that detailed arrangements for their team to lose specific games in exchange for favorable treatment in tournament seeding. The room erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouts, as parents realized that entire seasons had been manipulated for financial gain. The coach's demeanor shifted dramatically as he realized that his scheme had been exposed far beyond what he had anticipated. He began sweating profusely and stammering through increasingly unbelievable explanations for the evidence being presented against him. Several parents started shouting questions about specific games and decisions, and the meeting began to feel more like a trial than a community discussion. Then came the second bombshell that nobody saw coming. The league president himself had been involved in the corruption. A father who worked in banking revealed that he had processed unusual cash deposits from the coach's account that coincided with tournament dates and major games. The deposits were always in round numbers that suggested payments rather than legitimate income, and the timing was too coincidental to ignore. The revelation that the corruption extended to the highest levels of the league administration sent shockwaves through the assembled parents. We had come expecting to confront one corrupt coach, but instead discovered a systematic network of fraud that compromised the integrity of the entire youth baseball program. The anger in the room became palpable as parents realized how deeply their children had been betrayed by adults they trusted. A third stunning development emerged when one of the assistant coaches broke down and confessed to being pressured into participating in the scheme. He revealed that coaches throughout the league had been threatened with losing their positions if they didn't cooperate with the bribery system. The emotional breakdown of this man, who had clearly been struggling with guilt over his involvement, added a human dimension to the corruption that made it even more heartbreaking. The meeting continued for 3 hours as more details emerged about the scope and duration of the fraud. Parents shared stories dating back several years, indicating that this corruption had been affecting children's experiences for much longer than anyone had realized. The systematic nature of the scheme became clear as patterns emerged across multiple teams and seasons, revealing a level of organization that required coordination at the highest levels. What surprised me most was discovering that some parents had been unknowingly participating in the corruption by making what they thought were voluntary donations to team expenses. These well-meaning contributions had been used as cover for the bribery scheme, with coaches telling certain parents that donations were expected while letting others believe they were optional. The manipulation of honest parents who wanted to support their children's activities added another layer of betrayal to an already devastating situation. The emotional impact on the children became the focus of the conversation, as parents realized that their kids had been witnessing and internalizing these corrupt practices. Many children had questioned why they weren't getting fair opportunities despite their efforts, and some had begun to lose interest in baseball because they felt the system was rigged against them. The damage to their faith in fairness and adult integrity was potentially more significant than any athletic disappointment. As the meeting progressed, parents began organizing into action committees to address different aspects of the crisis. One group focused on gathering evidence for potential legal action, while another worked on communicating with league officials who might not be involved in the corruption. A third committee began planning how to restore integrity to the program and rebuild trust with the children who had been affected. The coach eventually stopped trying to defend himself and sat silently as the full extent of his actions became clear to everyone present. His silence spoke volumes about his guilt and the hopelessness of his situation. Several parents demanded his immediate resignation, while others wanted to pursue criminal charges for fraud and corruption of a youth sports program. The meeting ended with a commitment from the assembled parents to completely overhaul the league structure and implement transparent systems for team selection and game management. We established oversight committees with rotating membership to prevent future corruption and created clear guidelines for financial contributions and team expenses. The goal was to restore the program to its intended purpose of providing positive experiences for children learning to play baseball. In the weeks following the meeting, the coach resigned in disgrace, and several other league officials were removed from their positions. The league president was investigated by local authorities for financial irregularities, and several families pursued legal action to recover money they had paid under false pretenses. The entire structure of the youth baseball program was rebuilt from the ground up with transparency and fairness as the guiding principles. The most challenging aspect of the aftermath was helping the children understand what had happened, without completely destroying their faith in adult authority and organized sports. Many kids had formed friendships and positive memories despite the corruption, and we worked hard to preserve those good experiences while ensuring they understood that the unfair treatment they had witnessed was not acceptable. My son initially struggled with the revelation that his coach had been corrupt, but eventually expressed relief that the unfairness he had sensed was real and not just his imagination. He had been questioning his own abilities and wondering why he wasn't getting opportunities that seemed to go to less skilled players. Learning that the system had been rigged actually helped restore his confidence in his own abilities and judgment. The new league structure implemented strict financial transparency requirements and established merit-based selection criteria that were publicly available to all families. Coaches underwent background checks and training on ethical conduct, and parent committees were given oversight responsibilities to prevent future corruption. The changes were comprehensive and designed to ensure that what we had experienced could never happen again. 6 months later, the youth baseball program had been transformed into something that actually lived up to its stated values of fairness, sportsmanship, and character development. The children were playing with renewed enthusiasm because they knew their efforts would be rewarded based on merit rather than their parents' financial contributions. The competitive atmosphere was healthier because everyone understood that games were being played honestly. Looking back on that evening at the community center, I realized that what started as a simple confrontation about one corrupt coach had evolved into a complete transformation of how youth sports operated in our community. The parents who gathered that night had created something better than what existed before, and our children were the ultimate beneficiaries of our willingness to fight for integrity and fairness. The experience taught me that corruption thrives in environments where people are afraid to speak up or assume that others will handle problems. The bribery scheme had persisted for years because individual parents suffered in silence, thinking they were the only ones who noticed unfair treatment. Once we came together and shared our experiences, the pattern became undeniable and action became inevitable. The lasting impact of that night extended far beyond baseball, as our community learned valuable lessons about the importance of transparency, accountability, and collective action in protecting our children's interests. We created a model for addressing corruption that could be applied to other youth programs and organizations, where adults hold power over children's opportunities and experiences. Today, when I watch my son play baseball in the Reformed League, I see kids who are genuinely excited about the game because they know their efforts matter and their opportunities are based on merit rather than money. The joy and enthusiasm that should characterize youth sports has been restored, and parents can focus on supporting their children rather than worrying about behind-the-scenes manipulation and corruption. The community center, where we held that pivotal meeting, has become a symbol of what can happen when parents unite to protect their children's interests and demand integrity from the adults who influence their lives. That night proved that ordinary people can create extraordinary change when they refuse to accept corruption and work together to build something better for future generations.